All right, welcome back to Conscious Construction, the Conscious Enneagram podcast. I'm Abby Robbins.
And I'm Kimberly Culbertson.
And today we're going to be talking about type 3.
Type 3.
Yeah, we're still in the heart center, so we did type 2 last week. Let's get into it. All right, hit me with the beats, Kim.
Okay, so the type 3 is in the heart center, which is the dominant center. Mm-hmm. And then the stance is the assertive stance, which is feelings repressed. And then their conflict resolution style is competency.
So we have heart, assertive, competency. Or as I like to describe it, heart, not heart, not heart. Just to give you a real clear picture of the three. Anytime we talk about the anchor types, we just need to give kind of a disclaimer that it's going to be a little confusing.
Right, because the 3 is both feelings dominant in the heart center and feelings repressed in the stance.
Yeah, and essentially what that means, and we talked about this a little bit in the type 9 video, is that these types, the anchor points, the types on the triangle, 3, 6, and 9, essentially what Peter O'Hanrahan says, and I love this phrasing, is that the dominant center is not available for personal use.
The dominant center is not available for personal use. I like that.
It's such a great description
bummer
of it.
For the 3, though.
Right? It really is. I want to just take a quick moment to share a story. So my brother's a 3, and my family, the first Christmas after I did all of my Enneagram training, they were all very, very sweet to me and allowed me to do typing interviews at Christmas.
Ooh, that sounds kind of awesome, actually.
So I typed most of my family. It was actually
Can people hire you for Christmases and Thanksgivings?
Of course.
Stop your conversation about politics. Abby's here to do typing interviews.
Let's get into the real deep, dark shit.
When you are the monster type.
Exactly.
When you're in your childhood bullshit.
Dealing with your family. So I did this typing interview with my brother, who turns out he's a 3.
Okay.
And one of the questions that I ask, and I ask all types this, is do you consider yourself empathetic? And he said, yes, extremely, which surprised the hell out of me. I was like, oh, okay. You really, okay, you're vibing with okay, cool. But then
you're like, no, you're not.
Well, I was trying to be very
oh, well, you're wrong.
Professional face.
Do you say that often in your typing interviews?
Never.
No, that's wrong.
No. But he immediately followed it up with, but what was the exact phrasing? He was like, yes, I consider myself empathetic, but I'm using it to my advantage. And I was like, oh my God, I have never heard a better description of heart dominant feeling repressed. And what he meant by that was I can really feel what's going on in a room, and I use that to my advantage. I use that to
it's so true
get
for
what
the
I want,
3.
get what I need. Yeah. And some people hear that and they get really squicked out, and they're like, oh, that's so gross, blah, 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 3s, this and that. And really, I mean, this is a way to move through the world that is just as valid as any other type.
Right. And actually, I think let's take a minute and talk about how much we tend to shit on the 3 in the Enneagram community.
Yeah.
Especially if your Enneagram community is a church community.
Yeah.
Where that is often the case. And the whole time, we tend to really elevate and appreciate 3s for all their 3-ness, but we don't want to give them any credit for it.
Yeah, it's so essentially I think a lot of the problems come down to the fact that we are a very 3-ish culture in the United States. Mm-hmm. And we both love and hate that about ourselves. Right? We love that we are driven and ambitious, but we hate that we're seeking attention and all this other sort of stuff. And really, I think it's important to take time to kind of separate the type structure from the failings of our own culture.
Our culture. Yes, absolutely.
And I think it's also really important, and this is actually something that's coming to me just in the moment, but it seems especially important to kind of deconflate the type 3 structure from capitalism. I think we often really hammer home this idea that threes are going to climb the corporate ladder and they're going to do this and that. And it's like, it's very aligned with capitalism. And that does not have to be the case.
It really kind of pisses me off, actually.
Yeah.
Not to like jump on a soapbox, but a 3 will be a great salesperson if their metric for success is sales.
Yeah.
But when we make the caricature of a 3 like a smarmy salesperson, first of all, it's mean to the 3s. And second of all, if what is honored in their space is not like salesmanship,
they will mistype.
They will not do it because that will not be how they succeed and achieve and excel in that space.
Yeah.
One thing that we talked about a little bit before we record this is that it was pre-pandemic a while ago.
Yeah.
But Abby did these panels, and you can actually probably find them.
They're on the YouTube channel. You can go back. There are snippets from each one of the panels.
So we had 3 threes on the panel, but they all originally had mistyped.
Yeah.
But it was hilarious because the yoga teacher had mistyped as a 9, and the
therapist had mistyped as a 4, and the editor/technical writer had mistyped as a 5.
Right, and so why are 3s mistyping that way? 1, they don't look like the caricature because we've done a bad job of explaining the 3, and 2, 3s tend to figure out what is needed for the sea that they're in, that they're swimming in, and so what they will bring to the front is what is needed, and that is actually a really impressive intelligence. And we often kind of cast shade at how intelligent it is to be able to walk into a room and know what part of you will fit the puzzle of that room. And so it's not always like a malicious deceitfulness.
Yeah.
Even though we talk about deceit with the 3 sometimes, they're often kind of self-deceived if they haven't done their work, but they also are just intelligently turning like the facet of them toward the light, towards what is going to fit and what is going to be needed there.
Yeah.
So that they can exceed the expectations of the room.
I think there are some really wonderful gifts to the type 3, and I just want to like hop on this one piece that you mentioned, like the 3 type structure. The deceit is never malicious. Now, people can be malicious, but the type itself is never
that's
malicious.
Such a good word. Yes,
I
totally agree.
This goes around the circle, right? Because it's really easy, especially if you have negative relationships or negative interactions with certain people of certain types, to then assign this kind of malicious behavior to the type.
Yep.
The type is not malicious. Never. Type structure is essentially a wildly intense scaffolding of coping mechanisms.
Yeah,
and some of those are maladapted, but they are simply designed to keep the person who is using this type alive and safe and well.
Right.
That is it.
They're primarily subconscious.
Exactly.
They're like our unconscious coping mechanisms that we're using to get our needs met in the world. And that's why this is called conscious construction, because we're bringing it into consciousness. But something that is an unconscious mechanism of our personality is by definition not malicious.
Yeah.
Because malice requires conscious intention.
And so it's really important to understand that even if a 3 is being deceitful with you in a situation, it's not necessarily malicious. All types can be malicious in different ways. Of course. But malice is not a function of type. So just to get that clear as we talk about a type that honestly gets a bad rap.
Yeah.
So we've talked about, kind of the 3 beats, right? The dominant center, the repressed center, and the conflict resolution style. Let's dive a little bit deeper into the heart center and how that shows up for type 3. Because we talked about in the 2 episode when we kind of launched the heart center, everyone in the heart center sees themselves like this compared to everyone else, right? They are a notch lower,
right?
And they are using their type to kind of fill in the gap and even the scales a little bit.
And I think a lot of people would be surprised that the 3 is down there.
Yeah, well, the 3s see themselves there, and that's why they are working so hard to earn this love, respect, admiration, what have you.
The desire to be impressive and look impressive is a way to cope with that feeling that they are not enough. And there's a lot of fear for the 3 that people will figure out. There's like that imposter syndrome, that sense of like, what if they find out that I'm not as good as as
Yeah.
I'm portraying.
Because you can imagine, right, if you see yourself as down here, you have to be extra impressive to get back up here. But what the rest of us see is this person that's on the same level as us
or
being
here,
really impressive. Like, oh, God.
Right.
And so it really is, we look at the heart center and this like ability to be really relational and really connected and really see and understand other people, either in individuals or in groups. That's a gift of the heart center. And then we move quickly to that assertive stance, and we see how quickly threes use that information to further themselves, right? They take really quick action to really turn themselves into or even manipulate themselves into what the situation calls for.
Yeah, to get the best result.
Yeah.
Now, I will say threes often don't see themselves in the heart center right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And they don't necessarily come across as super relational like a 2 would.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that they're not using that relational intelligence. But what they're often using it for is that sense of reading the room and knowing how they're being received by the room. So what they're the most keyed into is how are people experiencing me?
Yeah.
And if I don't like how they're experiencing me, then because I'm an assertive type, I'm going to change that by changing the way I'm showing up in the space.
Now, this entire process takes a microsecond.
Right, because the intelligence is really right there.
It is so fast, right? And so this is one of the reasons why threes often get called the chameleon, because they can change so quickly and it feels so effortless. They're flowing from this presentation to a different presentation. And that is a function of this heart-centered intelligence.
Right.
I like to think of it as like they're taking in the information from the heart center, but they're responding to it from the body center.
Yeah.
Right. That's really how this is playing out. And we talked about, because we're on the anchor points, and we talked about this with the 9, and so I want to touch on it with the 3. Is like there is this division of types that we need to look at in the anchor types, where we talked about kind of the high energy 9 and the low energy 9, right? 9s are taking in information from the body and they're either responding from the heart or the head. 3s are taking in information from the heart and they're responding either from the head or the body. And what that often looks like is we have 3s who are success driven. And we have 3s who are failure averse. Right. And now at first blush, that can seem like the same thing. But I've talked with 3s who, one person who had mistyped as a 3, and they were like, well, I can't be a 3 because I haven't really achieved anything. Right. That they weren't quote unquote successful. But we got down into the heart of it, and they hadn't experienced, this kind of stereotypical view of success, not because they didn't want to be successful, but because they were reacting.
Willing to fail.
They weren't willing to fail. Right. Now that's the key there. They're not willing to see themselves as a failure. And so there are some 3s who are responding more from the head center who are more risk averse.
So what do you think for those risk averse 3s that the assertive type looks like for them?
It is a lot of managing. So one of the things that I think assertive types do, right? And this word can be kind of, we often kind of give a negative connotation to this word, but they manipulate, right? So we take something and we turn it into something else. That is a function of the assertive type.
And I think let's just name that every type is manipulative in one way or another. We really put that on 3s as if the other types aren't manipulating you in some way, but they all are.
Well, I think what you're talking about is like manipulation in some sort of like malicious sense where like I'm trying to get you to do something, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, yes, we're all doing that. We talked about that in the 2 space.
It doesn't have to be malicious to try and get your needs met.
Yeah, and it's not, right? But what I'm talking about is manipulation in a much more
like a personal
basic sense.
way.
It's not even a personal manipulation. All of the assertive types take something and they make it something different.
Oh, like in a mechanical way.
Like in a mechanical way,
okay.
Right? So this movement.
All right.
So all assertive types manipulate things. They take things, they turn them into something else.
Right. If it's not working, we will change it.
If it's not working, we're going to change it. For the 3, they are manipulating themselves.
Okay. All right.
They are changing themselves. They are seeing what is needed. They are taking themselves and they are shifting it. So even if you are failure averse and you're not taking a lot of risks, you're still managing yourself and your own expectations, your thoughts, your dreams for the future. You are managing, you're taking what maybe you want out of life and you're changing it in order to fit this model so that you don't have to face so much risk, right? You're manipulating yourself as a 3.
And you might not be going for the high achievement thing, but what you are doing, you're doing well enough that...
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
So your rubric for success is slightly different.
Sure. Okay.
Oh, that was a lot. I feel like in a like that we've been talking for a little while, but we really like powered through that, which is also very 3-ish of us. We are like we're on track here.
Yeah. I will say in terms of the assertive types, I mean, I'm an assertive type. I have a bias for assertive types. One of my best friends is the 3. You want 3 friends because they will figure out like, okay, here's the thing that we want. How do we get it? And how do we enjoy it the most? And how do we do it the best? And, you know, like they're really great thought partners. They will tell you like, you know, if you did this and this, it would be like way better. And it's such a gift.
Yeah.
You know, you're people, when you have 3s in your life, you're going to go have some fun, which of course is always
you're going to go have some
my
fun.
metric.
Other people are going to go do what they want to do, right? Like the 3 will change what they're doing and bringing to the table to meet the needs. Like,
I see what you're saying.
You're going to go have a lot of fun. I'm going to go on a super intense adventure, right? I'm going to conquer some big obstacle when I'm partnered with a 3, when I'm teamed up with a 3. When a 2 is teamed up with a 3, you're going to be that much more helpful, right? There's kind of this sense of...
But they're going to move you into whatever you want, faster, better, more efficient, more excellent. Like their advice will help you level up in almost any sphere, I would say.
Absolutely. 100%. And this is a real gift of 3s. And so I think it's frustrating that we give 3s such a bad rap when we clearly rely so heavily on them.
It really is. And I will say I've done a lot of work in Enneagram spaces that are also church spaces. And I know multiple people who have only ever heard negative things about themselves. Yeah. To the point where they pretend to be other types, or they won't admit their 3-ness. Like everybody else knows they're a 3, but they're like, no, I'm an 8 or I'm a 1.
Or I'm a 4.
Yeah. Because it's like actually unsafe in a lot of church spaces to name your 3-ness. While we almost exclusively, especially in like an evangelical mega church kind of space, only elevate 3s and then expect them to not act too much like a 3 or name their 3-ness, and that is just a real mindfuck. So if you're a 3 out there in church world, God bless you, and you're great, and we love you.
It's true. It's true. So let's talk about the conflict resolution style of the 3.
Yes, let's.
We are looking at the competency triad once again. So how is this showing up for 3s?
Well, with the competency triad, the 3, when they are in conflict, in order to get back to a place where they feel like it's resolved, they need to get back to a place where they feel like they are competent and excellent and they are efficient. And so the 3 immediately goes into tasks and problem solving. There's a problem, then let's figure out the puzzle until it is fixed and I can get back to a place where I feel like I'm not letting people down. People's opinion of me didn't go too low. Yeah. So they're trying to raise back up to, you know, that level where they're probably way above it, but they see themselves lower. Yeah.
I think it's really important to look at how the 3s are, you know, feeling dominant and feeling repressed. And really, when we think about feeling repression showing up for conflict resolutions, for competency conflict resolution style, you really see pretty clearly how, like, they are kind of ignoring the emotionality of conflict.
Yeah, they have no patience for their own emotions.
Yeah, and like
just have to fix
they
it.
Don't give any patience for their own emotions or their own, you know, like an emotional realness type of reaction. They think, oh, that's too emotional, right? You're not being logical, right? But they also don't give any credit to the positive outlook either, right? They ignore it. They give no value to the sunny side of emotion, right? Which is also necessary in conflict resolution. And they've just focused in on the mechanics.
Right. And I think they want to move out of shame. So if they're hitting shame in conflict, they want to fix it as fast as possible. So they're going to move right into action as that assertive type. But
in order to avoid it.
But then they want to move on from it.
Yeah.
So if you want to sit and talk about what happened and rehash it and explain why your feelings are hurt, the 3 is not going to have a lot of patience for that. They're like, I fixed it. Let's move on. They don't want to sit in that.
Yeah.
because it's activating their shame.
Yeah, and that is a really big growth point for threes, is to be able to sit and see how essentially you failed someone. Threes engaging with failure is a powerful tool for transformation, but God, does it feel terrible.
It does.
Right? Like, because you are touching into that shame and you're having to experience it, and all of these things that you've done, and this kind of, I mean, essentially this entire world that you've built for yourself and for the people in your life, in order to avoid shame, comes crumbling down.
Right.
And that's a hard space for threes to be in, but that's where you learn that you're not actually any lower than any of us.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, you can see the reality that we're all here. You're not down here. I'm not up here. We're right here.
Right. And when we're in that competency, emotional conflict resolution style, what happens is sometimes those people come across as kind of robotic
They
or
can be
calculating,
cold.
cold, because they don't really want to be in that emotional realness space.
Yeah.
They don't really want to silver lining it. They don't need the like fluff of getting back to the positive. They just want it to be solved. And they want to go back to being competent and excellent.
Yeah.
And so people who are in this triad, they really need to create space for other people to feel resolved with them when they need one of those things, when they need that positive outlook or when they need that emotional realness. And that means for a 3 that's kind of avoidant of failure, it's hard to resolve a conflict, especially with someone in the emotional realness triad, if you will not name your failure and just say, I hurt you, I'm sorry, it was unacceptable. And the 3, they know it's unacceptable, but they're trying to fix it with competency.
Yeah, and I mean, it's clear that they know it's unacceptable because they're trying so hard.
So hard, so fast. They're trying to erase it.
Yeah.
You know, like if you can do this fast enough, it will be like maybe you didn't even see it. You know?
That is a good word. I think that there is a really big piece here when we talk about, you know, kind of like growth points for the 3. It's slowing down. 3s move so fast, and it is a function. Right, all assertive types move very quickly. 7s, 8s, 3s. We're light speed compared to the rest of the Enneagram, but that's because we're not dealing with the heavy weight of emotions. Like, emotions slow you down,
right?
And so,
my gosh,
you know, it's a hard sell to get folks to slow down, because when you slow down, you feel your feelings, and who wants to do that? But
I'm gonna have so much to say about that when we get to 7. Whew.
Yes.
I just felt that in my bones. Like, slowing down sucks.
It does. It does.
But it is the work for the assertive types.
Yeah. And I think 3s especially, because there is, you know, 3s and 7s, I think maybe even more than 8s. Like, 8s have the advantage of the body to slow them down, right? Like, the body can move really quickly, but the body is also grounding and has that function of inertia that can really weigh things down a little bit. And
in conflict, they have the emotional realness.
Exactly.
Connection. And so, like, they're going to be in it.
Yeah. Where 7s have the emotionality of, like, the sunny side, right? Which is still emotional, right? In conflict resolution, where the 3s really have, they can move through so much quickly because the way that they're approaching conflict really does kind of surgically remove the emotions.
Right. And they don't really have time for the emotions because they're building their identity around what they're doing and what they're achieving.
Yeah.
And how people are experiencing them in a positive way. Yeah.
That old phrase that we hear about, like, what have they done lately? You know, like when we talk about bands or whatever, like, oh, well, what have they done lately? Like, that is like a haunting statement for type 3.
Yeah.
What have I done lately?
Right.
Because they're moving so fast, the past has no time to catch up with them. They can't sit with it, right? The practice of, like, looking back and appreciating the things that you've done, the places you've been, that's emotional. And 3s have no access to that. And so everything they just know where they are and where they have to be. And they always have to be higher, better, faster than where they are now. But they don't ever look back to see how immensely far that they've come. And so slowing down allows them to see that. And that can also help to, you know, a little bit of slowing down and looking back can make it easier to do a little bit more.
Right.
Right? Because you have that sense of grounding, like, oh, I really have accomplished a lot. Like, oh, like, wow, I am an impressive person, and not in like an egotistical way, but oh, I am a person, right? I'm a person, period, right? Like
Not
I'm
a machine.
not a machine.
For sure.
And I think that doesn't hit threes until they engage in quite a bit of work.
Yeah. And I think for any assertive type, that slowing down is a practice you have to build.
Mm-hmm.
And I think assertive types are not really the slow build type either. So it's like, I'll go on a silent retreat. And then you feel like 5 minutes in, like, what have I done to myself? Why did I say yes to this?
Yeah.
Because I have lived that story. But
really?
Oh, for sure. Oh my gosh. Silence always sounds great for like until I'm in it.
Oh.
But you have to build those muscles so that you can be still, but also so that you can stomach the emotional revelations that come from stillness. Because when you're talking about the assertive, they're emotionally repressed, right?
Yeah.
And when you slow down, you can't avoid the
feelings.
The feelings.
Yeah. I want to take a moment right as we're getting close to our time here to talk about one of like the real powerful gifts of the three. We talked about this kind of chameleon thing that they do. They can kind of twist and, bring out all these things. And like one of the things that the threes show us that is so deeply powerful is just the almost infinite capacity and ability of truly every human.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
We are capable of so much more, of being so much more. And being things that are different, right? Like if it's not even a metric of more, it's a metric of
possibility.
Different and possibility.
Yeah.
Yes, possibility is so huge for type 3. And they are essentially the archetype for possibility. They see possibility, they manifest possibility with almost every breath.
And a healthy 3 that's doing their work, they will bring you into that.
Yeah, when a 3 has like really engaged in their work and they've kind of at least acknowledged the game that they're playing with themselves where they have to be on top, right? When they can acknowledge that and then kind of set that to the side and it might not ever fully go away, but they can manage it, right? They're bringing everyone along, right? It's the Lizzo, like, if I'm shining, everybody's going to shine, right? Like that is a 3.
Do we think Lizzo's a 3?
Maybe.
Anyway,
I don't know enough about Lizzo to know, but we could dive into that later. So I think that's, if you are a 3 and you haven't felt appreciated in these communities, I want to apologize because I think that sucks.
That does suck.
And if you're somebody who works with a 3, coming at it from this sense of possibility and like the gifts of this type, is going to get you so much farther, right? It is very much like you catch more flies with honey than with vinegar. And these are people who need our love and acceptance just as much as any other type, but often don't get it. And I think that's a real shame.
And I think if you have 3s and they're your key people, make sure that you're there for them as much, if not more, when they're not in that shining star spot.
Yeah.
Because that consistency where they don't have to earn their acceptance is so important.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening. You can find all my stuff at consciousenneagram.com.
And I'm at KimberlyandCoach.com.
Don't forget to hit subscribe, like button, drop a comment below. Let us know what you thought about our talk on 3s. And we'll see you all in the next one.
Cheers.